Falling, dreaming, sucking,
Satellite imagery showing
keening,
damage to U.S. military facilities
fucking,
across Gulf Arab
sucking,
countries is starting to emerge.
sucking,
Part of Iran's furious
penis.
response to an Israeli-American campaign that decimated its leadership. At least 9 U.S. military positions have been hit in less than 48 hours. These are relatively close targets. They're much nearer to Iran than its usual target, Israel. That proximity may give Iran's missiles and drones a better chance of hitting their targets. This is the port of Shaiba, where just after 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, an Iranian strike set a makeshift U.S. operations center at the civilian port ablaze. 6 American service members were killed in the attack. You can see smoke rising from the fire. The blown-out 3-wide trailer blackened on the inside. There are few signs of fortification. In another attack,
That honestly, it sucks so much dog dick that we literally threw, America, I didn't try and do it, but I guess I did, by paying my fucking taxes. We threw these poor bastards in a tent in the desert. And lo and behold, who would have seen it coming? They got bombed by terrorists. It's only been happening actually longer than my entire life. So, what the fuck?
U.S. operations center at the civilian port of Sunday morning, an Iranian strike set a makeshift U.S. operations center at the
Rest in
civilian
peace to the
port
20-year-old
ablaze.
from Iowa
6 American service
and
members
everyone
were killed
else.
in the attack. You can see smoke rising from the fire. The blown-out 3-wide trailer blackened on the inside. There are few signs of fortification. In another attack, a drone, this appears to be the Arash-2, crashes into U.S. positions in Camp Buring. A building severely damaged. American helicopters
It's
parked
just
inside the
impossible
base were nearly
that we
hit.
couldn't have done it better.
In Bahrain, a Shahid attack drone flies into the base that hosts the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, one of the largest American naval formations in the world. It looks alarmingly defenseless. The drone hits one satellite communication terminal, clearly seen here.
Big
But
ass
the
target,
scale
no
of the damage is
defenses.
more obvious
Hilarious.
here. Warehouses and other
Good tax
buildings
dollars.
damaged. And another satellite communication terminal
Yeah, they blew up the whole
in a
block.
separate attack. We see this
Of course they
pattern
blew
of
up the
targeting
billion-dollar
throughout
target.
the region. At least 5 satellite communication terminals were destroyed. It points to a possible Iranian effort to cut U.S. bases off from the outside world. Iran used an unprecedented barrage of missiles and drones. U.S. Patriot missiles and other multi-billion-dollar air defense systems shot most of these out of the sky. But the ones that got through were enough to puncture the veil of security around oil-rich Gulf Arab states and the heart of America's security infrastructure in the Middle East.
Now the question is, just how long can Iran sustain these attacks? That depends on how big their stockpiles of missiles and drones are, which is currently unknown. And really, Aaron, it comes down to how
Huge.
quickly can the U.S. and Israel achieve their stated objective of obliterating the missiles. Until that happens, Iran has made it clear that in the aftermath of the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei, it plans to sow as much chaos as possible to U.S. interests in the Middle East and beyond.
At the very top of the program, I mentioned the strike on Al-Udeid that we are understanding has just happened, and that was from, we understand, a ballistic missile from Iran. What's the significance of that, given that you've been there so much, but that this is the single largest military base in the region?
Well, the Qatari government has the obligation, in concert with the United States, agreements in place to protect the airspace. When I was there, and over the course of time, certainly there was a full integration of not only U.S. air defense capabilities and those that are possessed by the Qatarian government. In this case, over the course of time, maybe the U.S. presence there has decreased somewhat, and in Qatar it has increased to a point that they now have primacy in terms of that mission set. That's the only thing I can assume right now, because for Iran to be able to target Al-Udeid, first of all, it's a known location. They know where it is, so that's no mystery. But for it to get through, that's a legitimate concern.
And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says all personnel are accounted for after a drone strike in a parking lot near the U.S. consulate in Dubai late last night. It is now 1 o'clock in the afternoon here. Paula Hancock's joining us from Dubai. And Paula, Just let's get some reaction there. People have been extremely concerned, of course, about these attacks. They do tell us they, on the whole, feel safe, though. How is what is going on in Dubai and the broader picture for Iranian attacks on US military and, importantly, non-military facilities going down?
Well, Becky, we had heard from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that they were expanding their targets. It was going to be American political centers hit as well, and we're certainly seeing that. As you mentioned there, the car park of the consulate in Dubai, close to where we are here now. There were no casualties.
Oh, that's my other foot.
In the building, we know that the consulate at the embassy in Abu Dhabi, they'd cancelled all appointments up until March 4th, which is today. Clearly, that is going to be extended. And we're seeing embassies being shut, the Saudi embassy, the Kuwait embassy, because they are being targeted. Now, we also saw overnight in Qatar, the Al Udeid air base once again being struck. This is the largest US military installation in the Middle East. But again, there would have been an awful lot of movement out of that base before this war started. Now, in Kuwait, there were interceptions of aerial objects, we're being told. One of the interceptions created debris, which then hit a residential building and killed an 11-year-old girl. So these incoming missiles and drones are continuing. We are seeing having a very high success rate of managing to shoot down these missiles and drones. We heard a couple of interceptions overhead a couple of hours ago. We're also hearing a lot more fighter jets in the air above the skies of Dubai today and yesterday. One interesting point to make is that France has now decided to send fighter jets into the skies above the UAE. The French minister saying that was to make sure that they could protect their military bases here. They said that a military base in Abu Dhabi had been hit. It's unclear at this point whether they will be actively involved in shooting down missiles or drones, but it just shows that the number of countries, particularly in Europe as well, being drawn into this war is increasing. France was very critical of the US president for making the decision to go ahead and attack Iran.
Nick, I want to talk about what's happening in the region. What are you hearing?
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, here in Riyadh specifically, the U.S. Embassy, State Department has authorized non-emergency staff to be able to leave. The consulate in Jeddah, the consulate in the east of the country, in the oil-producing sector in Dhahran, were under strict shelter-in-place instructions through the day yesterday. The Iranians continue their strikes and attempted strikes on Saudi Arabia. In the early hours this morning, 9 drones were intercepted. Another drone was intercepted in the last couple of hours in the eastern province. And here in Saudi Arabia, they are watching for how Iran may be escalating their attacks. A lot of the intercepts that have been successfully intercepted here have been drone attacks. But this morning, 2 cruise missiles indicating an escalation of the type of attack by Iran on Saudi Arabia were shot down successfully. No injuries reported as far as we know, in a town just south of Riyadh. And right next to that town is a massive Saudi military airbase. But in the last few minutes, we've heard that there has been an attempted attack again on Ras Tanura, the massive oil-producing facility here in Saudi Arabia. And of course, the concern for the Saudis is that their oil sector is potentially vulnerable. They're defending it, successfully defending it so far. But there is a risk, and they recognize this, that a strike on their oil facilities could put pressure on them to be dragged potentially into the war here, something that they are not inclined to do, and something that they are concerned about and have given Iran strong diplomatic signals not to do.
Strong diplomatic signals. Yeah, whatever. I don't care anymore.
Israel are obliterated.
We'll watch the Iran and Hezbollah joint attack on Israel. Now we're talking.
U.S. and Israel are obliterating Iran's military.
Yeah, right.
The U.S. and Israel are obliterating Iran's military
What about
and
the
targeting its
terrorists?
leaders this morning as the war continues to expand.
Military's
Israel
not the
launching
problem.
dozens of airstrikes in Lebanon, targeting the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah after it fired at Israel. Israeli ground troops pushing deeper into Lebanon. France is sending its only aircraft carrier to the Middle East to prevent Iran from strangling oil and gas supplies. It's not World War III, but every day more parts of the world are at war. Iran is continuing its strategy of firing missiles and cheap explosive drones across the Middle East and beyond, trying to widen the war and increase its cost. With new strikes this morning on an oil facility in the UAE, an explosion and fire near the U.S. consulate in Dubai, launching more missiles at Tel Aviv. So far, it's uniting a growing list of Iran's enemies. So who is running Iran? Israel destroyed a building in the city of Qom, where clerics were expected to choose a new supreme leader to replace Ayatollah Ali Khamenei,
Goddamn
killed by the U.S. and Israel. Iran says the clerics weren't inside, but meeting remotely. The late Ayatollah's son has reportedly emerged as a leading candidate, according to the New York Times, citing 3 Iranian officials familiar with deliberations. Israel's defense minister this morning said anyone Iran appoints will be an unequivocal target for elimination. President Trump said some Iranian officials his administration was hoping could take over have been killed in the war.
I guess the worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad
We're
as the
in
previous
pretty much worst case
person,
scenario,
right? That could happen.
aside from nukes
The U.S.
already.
now says more than 50,000
Which probably has
troops
happened.
are
All these
involved in the
earthquake
operation,
reports. Yeah,
and
right.
more help is on the way. As the Pentagon released images of 4 of the at least 6
There's
American
already
service
nukes
members
going down.
so far.
And Craig, I've also managed to speak to several Iranians inside Iran, which is difficult because of limited communications. And they told me that many Iranians do support these attacks against the clerical regime, but they said they are too frightened to go out onto the streets because the government has made it abundantly clear that anyone challenging the system will be shot on sight. Craig.
Richard Engelforce there in Tel Aviv. Richard, thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show.
Take over your government. You will only be shot on sight a couple of times. Not so bad. Not so bad.
We're just an hour away from a crucial update on U.S. military operations in Iran from the Secretary of War and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as we enter Day 5 of Operation Epic Fury.
Our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yeats, is live on the ground in Israel and Tel Aviv with the breaking news out of Turkey. Trey.
Yeah, guys, this is breaking news. Turkey's Ministry of Defense says that an Iranian ballistic missile was launched toward their country, and it was shot down by NATO air defense systems. Fragments of that missile landing in southern Turkey. This is a major development and the first time that a country like Turkey has received incoming Iranian ballistic missile fire. This comes as the Israelis are going after more of those launching positions inside of Iran. We also have some new video of strikes against the Iranian capital of Tehran. It's been a lot of back and forth. Alerts went out on the phone here this morning after an 8-hour lull in launches. And actually, we're getting sirens right now. And I'm not sure where this missile is coming from. It may not be Iran. It could be Lebanon. Let's get off the sticks here just to prepare. The reason I'm not sure if it's from Iran is because we just got a notification from the Army that people could leave bomb shelters. And these sirens just started to sound at the last minute, and so we'll have to see where this incoming fire is coming from. But just to give you a sense of what's happening here, this is a conflict that is expanding regionally. And this information that we're getting from the Turkish Defense Ministry indicates that the Iranians are launching more of their long-range ballistic missiles. And they do have thousands of them in their arsenal, 2,000 to 3,000, just before this conflict began, along with many short-range missiles that they've been launching at Gulf countries like Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. But again, right now, sirens are sounding across central Israel. And I just want to come with me here, Yaniv. If you could go to the road here, you can see under this bridge in the distance, people have gotten out of their cars, and they are now sheltering under a bridge on the side of the road. Stay with me here. We're going to pan up to the sky.
Isn't that a
and you
pretty
see
bad
two
spot?
interceptor round,
I gotta be honest.
and right there to the left,
Underneath the bridge,
and you see
if they're gonna
another
hit something,
interception
they're
round
probably
coming up.
gonna hit
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another one coming up from the sea. This is a large-scale attack that is happening right now. I'm going to move this so you can get out here to the balcony and stay with me here, guys. And out to the center above these buildings to your left, you need. Pan to the left. And so a large attack again, and you can hear those explosions now ringing out throughout Tel Aviv. Just stay with me here. I'm going to get a helmet on. I'm listening to you. Massive explosions right now.
You know what system that would be to knock out a long-range missile? Is the Arrow, David Sling? Is it the Iron Dome?
Yeah, that would probably be Israel's Arrow 2 or 3 systems. And I can still hear sirens sounding in the distance. We're going to try to get an understanding of where this launch came from. It is possible this was still from an Iranian barrage that was launched a bit earlier. My producers are going to check right now. But you can hear those explosions. That was a lot of air defense going off at the same time from multiple different directions around Tel Aviv. And again, an alert had just gone out from the Army telling people they could leave bomb shelters, and you saw those people behind me that were sheltering underneath that bridge. This is really the reality here for the Israeli people as this conflict continues. We have this gear on and a helmet we have seen in the past when these missiles get intercepted overhead. Large fragments of the missile falling to the ground below. And yesterday, the Iranians launched a ballistic missile with a cluster warhead on top. It broke apart on the outskirts of Tel Aviv, and when we arrived at one of the scenes in a community called bannanaed, just outside of the city, you could see how one of these missile fragments flew through the side of a building. And so it's an incredibly dangerous moment for the Israeli people. And we should also note the Iranians are reducing the amount of missiles they're launching because the Americans and the Israelis are hitting these launching positions so frequently, they're not able to get off these large barrages. And again, I'm just going to check my phone here and see if we have any information on where these launches
Trey,
came
real
from.
quick, what made you think that it could have possibly come from Lebanon?
And so Israeli media is reporting right now. I don't have an individual source on it, so we're going to cite it to Israeli media. They're reporting that there was a joint attack from Iran and Lebanon at the same time. And so Iran using its proxy in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah, to launch a missile, a long-range missile toward Israel as they were launching ballistic missiles. And again, this is done to try to overwhelm Israel's air defense systems. A little bit of information for you on Hezbollah. Israeli intelligence sources tell Fox News the organization still has 11,000 to 12,000 missiles and rockets that they can use to launch toward Israeli cities. And the Israelis are also concerned about the possibility that these Hezbollah ground forces could try to push into northern Israel. And that is why we understand, according to the IDF, Israeli troops are now in southern Lebanon. And just this morning, before we got on air, they issued an evacuation order to Lebanese civilians south of the Litani River to get out of harm's way, understanding that this conflict is now expanding north. And the Israelis, we have some video of it, have been striking the Lebanese capital of Beirut overnight and this morning, hitting the Dakhia neighborhood just south of Beirut, where Hezbollah is coordinating these current attacks that you're watching now against Israel.
Wow. So what happens when we're watching the interception and they shoot down, let's say it's a ballistic missile? You mentioned that some of the fragments, they fell and went into a building. So you could actually miss being hit, obviously, by the missile, but then when they blow it up in the air, the fragments fall down, and that could hit individuals or houses down on the ground, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting some more information, and I'm going to get it to you as our team here is texting sources to determine if there were any impacts or injuries as a result. But when these missiles are intercepted, oftentimes the air defense systems do get overwhelmed. And that's why we've seen these impacts in different areas of Israel. At least 10 people have been killed by Iranian ballistic missiles since this conflict began. And now the Israeli military is confirming those reports. That was a combined attack that you just saw from Iran and Hezbollah at the same time. But when these missiles do slip past air defense, they can cause a massive amount of damage. We were at one scene here in Tel Aviv where a woman was killed. And when we arrived, there was so much destruction that for blocks you could see damage to buildings. And as we arrived at that scene, more missiles were coming in, and the first responders had to leave the building where they were putting out the fire and head underground with civilians. And oftentimes, like you saw just there, we did not expect that attack to happen at that moment. People who are on the expressway or driving or out in the streets, they have to pull off, they have to get to hard cover and watch out for those fragments because these missiles are so large. We've actually seen some that fell in the desert during the 12-day war last year, and they're the size of a school bus when they're flying through the air. And so you can imagine, even with these advanced interceptor rounds that the Israelis have, the Arrow 2 and 3 systems, and the American Patriot and THAAD missile defense systems, even if they are intercepted, they can kill you if they land on the ground in Israel.
Hey, Trey, I get the sense that the Israelis are not upset that Hezbollah rocketed them. They wanted to finish the job. They know that Hezbollah was reconstituting, making more rockets. The IRGC had come in to help build up their hierarchy again. So do you sense among those in the IDF and Israeli government that they wanted this opportunity to finish the job and Hezbollah just gave them that opportunity?
Absolutely. The Israelis were at war with Hezbollah for more than a year and a half. They got involved in the fight after Israel and Hamas went to war inside Gaza following the October 7th terrorist attack that triggered that conflict. We can still hear explosions in the distance here, and there are sirens sounding in southern Israel. This appears to be somewhat of a coordinated attack by the Iranian regime and also Hezbollah. In terms of the Hezbollah leadership, you have Hassan Nasrallah, the man who was killed in an Israeli strike in the Daqa neighborhood of southern Beirut. And immediately Hezbollah appointed a successor, Naim Qassem. And this is another hardliner in Hezbollah, a man who has good contacts with the Iranian regime. He was responsible for a lot of the smuggling operations to bring in missiles, drones, and components into southern Lebanon to prepare for a battle against Israel. But Hezbollah still has these pockets, not only in southern Lebanon and in the south of Beirut, in the Daqa neighborhood, but also in the northern part of Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley. And so they've been digging in for a number of decades to prepare for this conflict. And the Israelis were waiting for this opportunity to get involved in the fight again against them because they realize that once the Iranian regime is suppressed as a result of this operation that was launched by President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the threat to the north will still remain. And when they have these arsenals, it does pose a significant threat to the Israeli people. One thing that we should note here that was interesting this week, the Lebanese Prime Minister has had a total change in tune. As a result of the Trump administration efforts to stabilize the northern border between Israel and Lebanon, you've had Morgan Ortagus and Tom Barak and others from the Trump administration go to Lebanon and send a message to the government saying, this will not be tolerated. There must be a ceasefire. And you actually heard earlier this week the Lebanese Prime Minister telling the Iran-backed militant group in Lebanon, Hezbollah, to stop, to stand down. And they haven't. They're fighting right now. You can hear those sirens behind me, likely going to any sort of falls or fragment sites here in Israel. But this is a significant development, and even again, as we are talking right now, I can see in Ashkelon, this is actually close to the Gaza border, there are sirens sounding in northern Ashkelon. Ashkelon is a city of just about a few miles away from the Gaza Strip. Again, we don't know why those sirens are sounding. I can't talk with sources while we're here on air, but right now, this is a significant attack, and it comes after an 8-hour lull in Iranian launches because, again, the Americans and the Israelis are doing everything they can to neutralize that ballistic missile threat, and they've been quite successful so far.
Right, and so you don't think that Hamas is sending rockets in, but that's a possibility? They're capable of doing that?
The threat from Gaza has been greatly reduced. Hamas still has some rockets and mortars in their arsenal, specifically in the Deir al-Balah neighborhood of central Gaza. But the reality is the war in Gaza is a secondary, if not even further down the line, for the Israeli people and for the Israeli military. There have not been any reports of airstrikes in Gaza over the past several days. The focus has largely been on the northern border with Hezbollah and, of course, the Iranian regime. The Israelis are using much of their air power, actually the most in the country's history, to hammer the Iranian regime. And so Gaza is sort of an afterthought for the Israeli military. One interesting thing that we learned earlier today, and a military source is telling me that they believe they're going to have video of this. For the first time in 40 years, the Israelis shot down in a dogfight over Tehran an Iranian jet. They used an F-35 fighter jet to do that. And we're also just getting another update following that last barrage. First responders say they are responding to several scenes. We don't know if these are direct impacts or fragment falls. But again, there is a concerted effort here in Israel to place first responders throughout the city. You see them in different areas, even at night when it looks like a ghost town here in Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. But first responders are out, and I've been talking with the Israeli police. They say this is done so that they can get to these scenes very quickly, and if people are killed or wounded, they can start providing care.
Copy that. Trey, we're going to let you go so you can work the phones with some of your sources. Stay safe.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Suck
And
Dick
click here
Dick
to
Dick.
subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling